Hey, everybody. Eric Obrent, Be Authentic or Get the Fuck Out Here, special edition episode. And we are going to be talking today with Adam Patterson. Adam, what is your title?
I'm not a big believer in titles, Eric.
But do you have one?
Yeah, no, not really. Sometimes use the word Chief Workforce Architect, right?
Cool. That's way smarter than me. But Adam is with SMA Support Services, our title sponsor for Be Authentic or Get the Fuck Out. And we thought that it would be really fun to do a every other week. Is that bi-weekly? Is that what it is? Bi-weekly?
It's bi-weekly. Yeah, bi-weekly. Yeah,
I always get confused because I think bi-weekly, then I'm like, that means twice a week, but it doesn't. Okay. So every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks, we're going to do a webinar like this. Call it a webinar episode, whatever you want to call it. We don't care, but it's going to be educational. The idea is we want to help people understand how to use virtual assistants inside of their organization to do different things. And today we're going to be talking about top line revenue and some of those things that people really care about. But what I want to get into first, as people are jumping on, is Adam, introduce yourself a little bit so everybody knows that you actually have credibility and know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah, fair. It's great to read everyone. I love doing these with you, Eric. I love connecting with you, and any opportunity to use the F word, I'm going to take full advantage of. Right?
Anytime.
So, being on Be Authentic or Get the Fuck Out, there's nothing greater for me. So yeah, my background actually is in private equity and venture capital. So we worked, myself and a few business partners here in the Northeast, worked predominantly with software companies years back, building high velocity, high growth organizations to really, how do we get our top line revenue to grow 300 to 500% in a 2 year or less period. Part of that is recapitalizing the business. Part of that is, building direct talent strategies, building like direct roles and go-to-market strategies and operating hygiene. I got real interested because of the macroeconomics in home services. I got even more interested in roofing a few years back because I met a handful of roofers. And now I'm hooked on the space. And what we do today is run SMA Support Services, which is business process outsourcing, said differently, virtual assistants, dedicated to the home services and most specifically the roofing industry.
So what everybody's going to notice in these webinars is that I think what's going to happen is that Adam is going to say really, really, really smart shit. And then I'm going to try and translate it into dumb guy words.
Tangible things. Fair.
Tangible things. Yeah. At the end of the day, just so everybody knows, SMA isn't a sponsor of our show, like just because we need a sponsor. SMA is part of Be Authentic because D&M loves SMA, and we use them for literally almost everything inside of our company. If you're not boots on the ground in our company, like if you don't have to be in the field, you're part of SMA. Like that's what we're doing. It's our back end staff, our front end staff. I mean, it's literally everything. And so what we wanted to start digging into today, and I think we're going to have another guest here in a little while. But what I want people to start learning about today is how we utilize virtual assistants inside of our company to actually increase our top line revenue. And that was the thing that you and I were talking about off camera. If you want to kind of give a couple of ideas of that, and then we can kind of banter back and forth on how you see it and then how we've actually implemented it into D&M so that other people can do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I want to be clear about one other thing is to make sure the audience understands. Getting you to agree to allow us to sponsor the podcast was like pulling teeth. Yes. Yeah, it's one of the hardest things that I've ever done in my life was getting Eric's buy-in to allow us to give him money to sponsor this podcast. And we wanted to do it in part, right, because we love your brand and we love what this stands for, first and foremost. So
I appreciate that. It was really hard.
Yeah, it was. We're there, right? To that end, the question I think I get most and the most frequently hear from company owners or from folks that we work with is like, where do I start? The idea of virtual assistant sounds great, right? But where do I even begin? And part of that is a reflection of this space. Like home services and roofing, it's a high velocity industry. So what I mean when I say that is in any one project, you've got the homeowner, you've got the insurance carrier if you're a storm and restoration contractor, you've got the distributor, you've got the shingle manufacturer, you've got the sales rep, you've got your production, right? There's like 8 or 9 externalities to each one of these projects. And when we're working with a homeowner, we're working with the most important investment that family has ever made in their life. It's their life's work, right? So there comes with that a lot of responsibility and a lot of guidance that we need to provide back to those communities that we serve. And so when I get that question, right, which is like, where do I start, right? There's all these things happening in my business all the time. I'm up till 11 p.m. after I put my kids to bed, like working on back-end paperwork. Like, it would be great to have some support here. I actually point more directly to one thing, which is, first and foremost, this should make you a lot more money. And part of that, right, is because you want to have a service that helps to pay for itself, either by
because most people, when they think of VAs, they immediately think a virtual assistant, right? Somebody assisting me, and I don't have enough shit to even give them, right? They don't start thinking in this process, which is why I think this is really important. If you're watching, like, fucking listen, because this is like where it gets. This is where I wasn't even ready for it, right? In my mind, it was like, oh, they want me to have an assistant, like that's cool, but I don't even have enough shit to give them, which I did. I didn't know it until later, but this is where it gets important because you can actually like increase the things that you're doing. Go ahead.
Yeah, right. So that's what I point to, right? It's all about, how do I grow my top line? And that can look in a little bit of, there's different avenues to pursue in that, right? It could look like, because, I ask my reps to sit on hold with insurance carriers for 2.5 hours to schedule adjuster appointments. And like, what if I could give them 10 to 12 hours a week back of time? And what if they could go get 2 to 3 more jobs a week, right? What if every one of my reps all of a sudden is selling 8 to 10 more jobs a month? What does that do for my top line revenue? What does that do for my goals? It could look like I don't want my reps sitting in an office cold calling. I want them canvassing. I want them integrating into the communities in which we work. I want them developing referral partnerships with insurance companies. They're developing referral partnerships with real estate agents.
You hire them to talk to people, not to do fucking admin work.
Correct. A one-to-many work, right? And so, and it can look like, again, I want somebody whose only job, whose behavioral alignment is I'm great at cold calling, and whose comfort zone is I'm excellent at cold calling, and is happy to pick up a phone 170 times a day to set meetings for my reps to generate more revenue, to do what they do best. So I was talking earlier, right? We talk about high growth, high velocity companies, and we built a handful of unicorns in our day. There's one thing they all had in common, which was their revenue generators spent 80 to 90% of their time within one step of the close, right? So either that was signature appointment, or, in the roofing world, the color appointment, or the introductory meeting right before that. But if you want to grow your top line, your rep should be living 90% of their time in those steps, one step away from the close, at close, step before, or step after, right? And anything that isn't that, generally speaking, we can offload and offshore to someone else who can do it a whole lot better. Like, we talk all the time, right? I talk to company owners who say, like, my reps are awful at leaving notes in the CRM. They're awful at file management. They're awful at filling me in when there's a challenge or there's something going on in a job. We got a 60-day lien policy in our state, and I don't find out that there's no payment until 45 days after that's gone by, right? So again, some of this is like protecting risk, but the first place you should start is to think about, like, okay, what if I gave everyone 10 hours a week more back to sell? Or what if I had a new marketing opportunity that wasn't available to me prior because I couldn't afford the staff to build it?
To your point a second ago, sorry, because I think it's really important. I don't want to gloss over it. Is we do say that as business owners, like, we can't get our reps to do this. We can't get our reps to do this. We can't get them to update the CRM. We can't get them to make phone, whatever, right? Whatever those things are. And what we tend to do as business owners is continuously try to jam it down their throats and say, this is part of your fucking job. You have to do it to be able to win, to succeed. Like, if you don't do it, and what we're doing is we're trying to build a unicorn, because sales guys they aren't that good at certain things. We're hiring them to be the face, to talk to other humans, to try and close them for business so that we can get jobs and revenue and whatever, right? But we shouldn't be paying them to do admin work all the time, because it's bogging them down, and they're fucking terrible at it. Why are we hiring people to do jobs that they're fucking terrible at?
Right. And there's a psychological component too, right? By the way, which, our brains are wired. Guess what we love? Dopamine. Love it. Can't get enough dopamine, right? And so and that works in life, and that works professionally. Personally and professionally, we love dopamine. We're going to seek out dopamine as much as we can. And for your sales reps, their dopamine center is signing contracts. Boy, do they love closing deals. Do they love ringing that bell? Do they love going into your company channel to be like, got this contingency signed, got that deal signed, sold this retail job, right? We love to hear from them. We hear from them all the time. You know what they're never bragging about? Like, hey, left that note in the CRM. Hey, spent 90 minutes on hold with State Farm, right? And they're going to avoid that work, and they'll do it when they have to, but they're never going to be very good at it. So, like, I want to push people to that dopamine center, because they'll seek that work out. Like, they're going to hit that dopamine receptor at 7 or 8 at 9 p.m. All of a sudden, you're going to hear from your rep you're going to get a 10:30 at night email that's like, hey, I've been thinking a lot about work. right? And I think maybe we should try these things because you're helping them live into that center of life and world, personally and professionally, that they thrive in.
Yes.
There's another financial component, by the way, to why I say you should start at top line revenue, which is if you have us focused there more than 50% of the time, that's an SG&A expense, baby. And boy, is that helpful when I go to fire my year.
Say that over again. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hold on, say that again.
So if I'm aiming my outsourced labor at sales and service, it goes to SG&A at my year-end tax liability instead of a labor cost. And so as an example, let's take a labor cost. I'm a commercial roofer, we'll say, right? And I've got a big project that rolls from 24 to 25 because we couldn't get it complete. If I'm attributing my labor expenses labor, I have to re-inventory that labor and then pay taxes on it, right? Or I could move that labor cost to sales, general administration expenses, same as my marketing spend, and I can put it in my COG, my cost of goods sold, and I can reduce my overall tax liability from that prior fiscal year and either get a bigger rebate or reduce what I owe. And that is a major competitive financial advantage to companies that are offshoring that work as opposed to trying to say, I've got better control of it if it's right here. Right?
Love that. Okay. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Why didn't you tell me about that before?
I think we've talked about it, Eric.
I love that. Okay, let's talk about the we're going to dig into like the rehashing part because I think that's really important because I think that's a huge top line revenue adder.
Yeah. I mean, so in general, right, as a roofing company owner, 60 to 70% of your revenue should come from rehash and remarket, right? So the most valuable thing that you own is your contact database for the folks that never did a deal with you the first time around.
And we all talk about it, but none of us do it that well.
No, none of them do. I've talked to so many company owners that are like, oh yeah, I got 8,000 contacts that I just don't even remarket to, but I can't figure out how to do it. Part of that, right, is there's a dynamic in this space, which is like sell another roof. How many times have I talked to people that are, you've got a challenge in your business? Sell another roof. You got an asshole customer that's difficult to deal with? Sell another roof. Knock another door. So we like build this industry momentum that's just like, we'll just sell more roofs and that'll fix the problem, which is, the easiest way to sell more roofs is to go back to all those people that didn't buy a roof the first time around, right? So you get two buckets of leads as a company owner. You get bucket A, which is the easiest and everyone loves. I've got a leak or I had a hail event or I know I need a new roof right now. Any asshole can close those deals. That should be 20 or 30% of all your lead intake. Most of your lead intake is going to be, I just bought this house. Home inspector said something about the roof. I don't know if I need one right now, but I might in the next 2 to 6 years. So I'm beginning to think about how do I budget for it? What's it going to cost? Who do I like? What do I want? Right. And those are folks that you've got to take on an elongated journey through the purchase process. It looks like revisiting that contact every couple of months. It looks like sending them marketing material that might help educate that homeowner on buying a new roof.
Because most of the time we just go, they're not buying. They'll call us in a few years when they're ready.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Right?
Well, make them ready.
They won't remember what your fucking name is.
No. Do you remember the dentist you didn't go to 5 years ago? No, fuck no.
Right.
Right.
You didn't go to. Exactly. Like, you researched them. You're like, I bet they look nice. And then you don't.
Right. No, you go because I've got a tooth pain and I need a root canal tomorrow. Right. So I'm taking the first guy that calls me back. But you don't need to let the homeowner get to that point. So you can hit them with a CTA in 18 months. Right. Like, so there's ways but truly 60 to 70% of your deals should come from remarket rehash. That could be like a guy you sold the roof to 2 years ago, and you notice the siding looked shitty. Right. Go do the home inspection. Go do a hover report. Right.
Yeah. Because the nurturing is tedious. Right. And I think that's what everybody needs to hear is like the one of the biggest benefits at D&M is that we've offloaded this stuff that to us is tedious. Right. And time consuming and to a point mind numbing, right? But when we get to hand it off, like that team doesn't see it that way, right? Because they thrive in that world. Am I wrong?
No, they do. They absolutely, they love it, right? We use, we as a business, we use behavioral analysis so I can understand who my people are and what excites them. And then I align them to jobs and roles that feel fulfilling and exciting, right? I'm putting them in that dopamine center and I want them in that dopamine center all day. And as we get back to that point, right? Like your reps, they love the 20 to 30%. I need a roof and I need it right now. Like they love those people, right? So what if I could take the other 2 out of 3 people that come through the door and turn them into that file of leads, right? So now my rep gets to live in that zone. They're not remarketing. They're not rehashing. They're not revisiting. they're going to find more of that dopamine, right? They want to get the guy that wants a roof tomorrow.
Well, speaking of rehash, so Matt Grassmeyer just commented. So Matt's watching here, shockingly on LinkedIn. That's fucking crazy. I didn't know people actually watched us on LinkedIn. But so Matt's watching, and I think one of the really important things that people should think about is like, we all go to these conferences and we go to these things and we buy all these fucking softwares that have these amazing abilities to do certain things. And then we don't use them, or we don't use them at the capacity that they're actually built to be able to use, right? So I remember 7 years ago, however many years ago, when I first met Matt, and he sold me on using Hailtrace. And he's like, you can keep this list of all of the people that you've touched and you've inspected and you've done roofs for or whatever, right? And you can log it, and like it has damage or they're not ready yet or they're whatever. And then you can follow up with that list. And I'm like, that's a great idea. We're going to do that. I didn't fucking do that once. Not one goddamn time did I do that, right? So once we onboarded our team with SMA, one of the first things that I did was I said, let's completely fucking clean out all the bullshit, all the little tags that we had in Hailtrace, everything. And we're going to reload a list of every single client from the last 5 years, 10 years, whatever we had access to. And the team is going to go through. So now we know when we actually get an indicator that if storm hit or whatever, that list is going to pop up, and our call team is going to be on the phone that next morning, setting appointments with clients that we had worked with in the past. I tell everybody in the company, like, we can do this, but we never did it. But now that we have the team to actually do it, I get to utilize this amazing software that gives me a leg up on everybody, but I wasn't using it. And now I get to, and I know that like nobody else is going to do it, right? Like a very small percentage of the population is going to actually utilize that software that Matt sells that's amazing with Hailtrace, and they're not actually going to utilize it properly because they don't have the team to be able to do it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Exactly right.
Boom. Matt says boom. Yeah, sorry. I need to get Hailtrace as a sponsor now.
There you go. There you go.
But you know what I'm saying? Like there's so many different opportunities that we have with all of the different partnerships and like good people that are in this industry that offer these really amazing things. And we can't do any of them though without the support, right? Which is where the support comes from in SMA support services. We need that team to support us. And it's really hard to find it internally a lot of times in our company, right? Like how many office staff girls, or guys are you going to have?
Yeah. And Josh Hollabaugh, Lisa, I know I would love a VA for document prep. I mean, that's another big piece of it, right? That's another huge piece of it, which is how do I prepare documents? Like, how do I get proposals built? Like immediately, right? So rather than my reps in a home and meets with a homeowner and says, this looks great, I'm going to give you your good, better, best option. And then, goes to the 4 other appointments they have over the next 2 days. And then all of a sudden Friday morning rolls around and they're like, oh shit, I forgot to put that prep together, right? I got to get that proposal built. You go in AccuLinks, go into Job Nimbus, go here, go there, right? I have to get the 3 alternative options for those homeowners. What if like all of a sudden that rep's leaving the home and they just call their VA and they go, here's how the meeting went, leave these notes in the CRM, build this proposal, email it over to me so I can take a look at it, and then send it direct to the homeowner and make sure I'm CC'd. Yeah. Right? So rather than the homeowner waiting like a week or a week and a half to figure out what the price might be and then scheduling that follow-up appointment and then hoping that we sign and then getting the call appointment. No, they got the proposal within 24 hours, right? It's all about speed and speed of delivery. And
that's what we're literally built that out this year for D&M, was so that every time anything comes in, immediately it goes right to them. It gets built so that the guy can do a 24-hour turn to be able to present that presentation, that proposal to them. Now, the thing that we do differently is that I don't allow anybody to send a fucking email with an estimate, right? Like that's some fucking lazy ass bullshit sales rep, shit, because they're afraid to actually close the deal. So, but we make them actually come in and like print it out and bind it and take it. But if they're able to turn that in 24 and say, hey, while you're at the appointment, right? Like this is sales 101, like, you'll learn this from Chuck Toki and all those guys. But when you finish an appointment, you should be scheduling your next appointment, right? Yeah. So if you can confidently say, let's set our next appointment for 24 hours or 48 hours, because you know that your team is going to have that built out for you. And all you got to do is print it and bind it. And you've already got your appointment scheduled. And you know that it's going to be ready for you when you show up to that appointment. man, that's a huge advantage, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You know that you need that final appointment to be a 2-leg appointment, right? I know, I'm sure you have to talk about this with your wife, right? So when is she going to be home, right? Oh, tomorrow afternoon at 3. Great. Hey, I'll make sure that we get the proposal built before then. Let's schedule that time right now.
The really cool thing about having the RVA team is when I actually give somebody a deadline, they hit the fucking deadline.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen, it seems like, any other time. But if I say I need this by Friday, I get a noted, and it's fucking Friday. And if it's like, hey, we ran into some snags, this is way more difficult than what, we thought it was going to be. This needs to be pushed. I'm notified sooner than an hour before the fucking deadline was, because they're actually working on it and not trying to cram it in an hour before it's actually due.
Yeah. All of a sudden, it's not this thing that I have to do, right? It's the center of my world and then my job. And that's the other, and when we talk about virtual assistants, and this gets to a bigger, higher overreaching thing. And some of what makes, again, we talk about this often, but like what makes SMA very different, we pay our folks twice what the industry average is overseas. And we do that because we attract a way different caliber of talent. We hire less than 2% of our total applicants. We retain 95% of the folks that work for us. But that we pay that much, and we're a little bit more expensive because, frankly, the difference in the American dollar is negligible, but the difference in the peso is like tremendous. So you get folks that are desperately holding on to these jobs, right? The U.S. Department of Labor statistics, the Labor Bureau says if you pay a human being in the United States $25 an hour or less, on average, they last in that job 62 days. So it's that different. Right? Yeah, it is right. So if you're hiring someone domestically, in like you've got 3 things that happen, right? I hire someone for a back office role in the US, $20 an hour. If they're any good, I'm thinking like, shit, what do I promote them into so I don't lose them, right? If they're bad, I'm thinking like, all right, God, I don't want to fire this person, but like, how quickly can I find a reason to fire this person? And if they're just average, you're keeping your fingers crossed they last the full season so you don't have to restart that in the middle of July, right? Or you could contract out the labor and ensure it happens successfully each and every time. And you have somebody that's dedicated and emotionally committed and connected to your business and your business outcomes, because for them, this is the center of their world. They're making more than they could have expected to be able to.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point to make. And I forgot to bring it up, but when people are shopping to hire VAs, like back in the day when I hired my first VA, I just went on to Upwork, right, and tried to find somebody and and threw them in, and it was fine. But like I had to manage them. Right. Like all the time I had to manage them. I had to fucking make sure that they were, tracking KPIs, or they were giving me end of day reports, or they were doing any of those things. There's a reason why certain people are going to use SMA, is because they see value. Right. And they actually, like, if you're the company that goes out and sells value, right, how can you not be the company that wants to work with a company that does the exact same thing? And I think that's a really important note to make, because there is a big difference between, everybody thinks a VA is a VA company is, you know what I mean? Like everybody's built the same. I truly believe that SMA is built completely differently. And I think we need to hit on that one more time.
Yeah, we are. And I'm going to let you all in a little secret. Yeah, there are lots of $8 VAs out there. And do you want to know why they're $8? Because they work in what's called a shared service model delivery. Right. So that means, they're $8 to you, and they're $8 to the other 5 roofers that they're working for at the same time. And what they're doing is they're going to where the work is. So we're in a high velocity environment. I talked about that earlier. Yeah, they're responding to the work when the work comes in, but they're not a dedicated service model that's only ever working for you. What goes in our cost is that person is only ever working for your business. And in addition to that VA that we're providing, we're giving you a junior operations manager that is there to manage them day in and day out, oversee their work, step in if they're needed, step in if the work gets too great, coach and develop that individual, the things that you would have to do in that $8 model. You get a senior operations manager that is there to guide strategy. That's Mary for you, Eric, who loves working with you. We align Mary to let everyone else another secret. Every high testosterone, difficult to deal with company owner, that's who Mary goes to, because she trains them like dogs. So it gets them in line. But they're there to guide strategy, guide development.
It made me feel less special. That made me feel less special right there. It really did. It made me feel less special because I love Mary.
Mary's great. Yeah.
So I wanted to keep this around 30 minutes for everybody, so people hung on. But there was one, I wanted to bring in another guest here. I want to bring in Daniel Rabowski. Let me figure out how to fucking do this. Add to stage. There we go. Hey, Daniel, how are you, buddy?
Hey, man, how are you?
Good. So I wanted to bring Daniel in for two reasons. One, I want to talk real quick about the event that's going on here at the end of February, but I also want to talk about how. So Daniel came into my office and spent 2 days at my location, kind of shadowing me, interviewing my people, looking through my books, doing a super deep dive into my business to kind of see how we stack up, like what opportunities we might have down the road. Just where we are and where some holes in the boat, we can plug up to make ourselves better, right? And one of the things that Daniel told me at the end was that we were in good shape. There's obviously things that we need to work on, but we're in good shape. And one of the reasons that we were in good shape was because of this team that we have, because we're able to hand off so much of this stuff. And if Daniel's like, hey, I need this done, most companies would be like, fuck, that's going to take me 3 months. Right, to get that put together. But he looks at me and he's like, you're gonna have it in a week, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah, I'll just ask the fucking team to get it done, and they get it done, right? And I think that's really important. I'd like people to kind of hear a little bit about that from Daniel, like why that is important in the operational side of the business.
Yeah, well, thanks for bringing me on here for sure. And to Eric's point, yeah, I spent a couple of days out there with him, and we work with companies all over the country doing exactly what he just said. And a lot of times, Eric's probably been the most well versed in the use of outsourced services. We'll just call it, right. So I don't want to make it seem like anything that it's not. And when he has the team that he has and any of those tasks that come up and the questions that he has, like they're quick. I mean, they produce it because that's the task that they're assigned to do, right? And what I find is a lot of times where these companies could spend the money on it, they don't realize that sometimes these outsourced folks can do something so much more efficiently than they are, because that's the sole thing that they're doing, right? And you can replace a guy that you're spending. I say replace, not in a negative way, like you don't want to get rid of somebody who's a good person in addition to your company, but if you can facilitate their efficiency that way, it sets them up for success in so many different avenues. And especially when we're looking at private equity, and as everybody in our industry is right now, if you have a lower overhead cost and a higher increased efficiency in your company, that looks more attractive to private equity companies and M&A firms. Look, man, I live in a couple different worlds, man. But my point still stands. That it looks a lot more attractive to these PE firms, and efficiency is replicatable, right? And so I can take, if another company were to go through a roll up with Eric's company, we can mimic what he's already doing in this new company by way of the same type of setup and platform. And you're not trying to recreate the wheel for them. It's easy. The SOPs are already written, because one of the things that you guys do really well, Adam, is that they don't move unless they know exactly what the next step is, right? If they don't know what it is, they're sending an email, and then once that's refined, they're off to the races, and you can replicate that, and it looks really attractive across the board at the end of the day.
Because one of the things that really got me, that I think was important, when the last day that you were here and we were talking, I'm not going to name the company obviously or whatever, but we were talking, and Daniel was like, I know another company that did the exact same revenue that you did, but you made so much more money.
Yeah.
Because we've not figured out, but like I finally figured out, like, there's two ways to make more money, right? Either fucking sell more or spend less. And if you can fucking do both, like, cool, good for you. And I made the mistake in certain years of my business of overspending on things, on people that were doing 30% of what it was that they needed to be doing, right? And if the money that you're spending, you're getting 100%, 80%, 90% output from those people, right? You're going to perform better. I'd rather sell less and make more than sell more and make less. Like, that's just fucking stupid. And that's business 101. But most people don't think about it, because all they focus on, and any little show you watch or any, reel you see, it's all, what'd you do in revenue? What'd you do in revenue? What'd you do in revenue? The question is, what the fuck did you make? Like, what did you keep? That's what's important to everybody, right? Whether it's private equity or, like, if, going to the event or whatever it is, like, that's what people care about. What did you fucking make, and how can you recreate that?
Yeah. The other big piece of that, by the way, is the arbitrage component of private equity, right? So I signed my LOI, and now I'm going to my valuation. I'm going to understand what I'm going to be paid. guess what I'm going to always get hammered on the arbitrage is talent, capital, and overhead, right? And particularly employees and stateside employees create risk. That's in a liability lawsuit. That's an employment lawsuit. That's unemployment, right? There's all kinds of things in the arbitrage at the end of that deal that having employees and headcount in the States creates risk, a variable risk for your business. And your goal as a business owner, right, if you're built to sell, is to get the highest possible valuation in that sale. And
yeah. So Daniel, real quick, before we drop here, let's talk a little bit about the event.
Yeah. So we have so my company has a joint venture with Meritage Partners. They're an M&A firm out of California. Some of the folks listening to this might.
And your business is called?
Oh, it's Quantify Partners. Sorry. And some of you guys may know, some of the people listening to this might know who Brian is in Meritage. So we're collectively putting on an event at the end of the month. Eric's going to come out and speak at it. But the idea is that we're going to do a one-to-many with a lot of companies doing exactly that M&A evaluation, right? So we're going to get them as close to accurate as we can, right? Because until they go through actual diligence, they're never spot on. But the idea is to get as many of these guys in the room as we can, do a one-to-many where they can leave there saying, hey, my company's worth X. I have, and not worth from a revenue perspective, to your point of like, actually, what is my EBITDA percentage? What's my EBITDA value? And what does that look like when we start to have conversations about multipliers? And if we're looking to roll up or if we're just looking to be acquired, we're going to put a good group of people together to be able to educate the owners of these companies on what that process can look like if they want to go down that road. We're going to have there's a guy from UBS coming out there. We have a forensic accountant that's going to come out and do those things. And one of the things I know we're going to be discussing is the use of outsourced services and how that can, increase the bottom line and the value of your company. So we're going to spend one full day going through that. Everybody will exit there with a really well put together, Eric and I looked through one the other day. It's like 40 or 50 page long, like your company's worth $8 million and you should expect to get a 6 to 8 multiplier and blah, 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 blah. Right. It's really cool to be able to see that on paper and have that tangible thing to say, oh, because to your point a minute ago, everybody's like, oh, I did $10 million. Cool. But like, how much did you actually make? It doesn't matter. I can make $1 million if I was 750 profitable. If you made 10 and you're 500,000 in your bank, like I'm winning. Yeah. Right. And we want to be able to separate those things for people. And so we decided to put this event together. This will be the first one that we're doing. We're really excited to kind of see what kind of result and feedback we get from it. And be able to give some of these folks that are attending like a no kidding, like this is what you're worth, so they can stop kind of spitballing and then start actually seeing where they need to increase efficiencies, which again, go back to the outsourced model here. It's like, can I spend 60 grand on a guy to do 3 tasks, or can I spend 20 to 30 or 40 over the course of the year and have those things done significantly faster by a group of people who that's their sole thing to do. So we're really excited about it. If anybody wants to attend that, it's I know it's short notice at this point, it's only a few weeks out, but it is 2 days in Newport Beach, California. We're going to go do we're spending the first evening at the Porsche Experience Center riding Porsches around a racetrack. And then the next morning, we're going to dive into numbers and education on what that M&A process looks like. So if anybody's interested in it, reach out to Eric or myself, and we'd love to see anybody who can make it out there for it.
And I think the big thing on that too is to realize, like, if that sounds like something that you're interested in, realize that it's not just for somebody that thinks that they're ready to sell, because most people aren't ready to sell. The real intention of the event is to find out where you are and how you can get to where you need to be, right? You're not going to walk out of there being like, I'm selling my fucking business next month or whatever. The idea is to find out where those holes in your boat are so that you can fix them, so that you can then have the conversation that you may want to have down the road, right? This isn't for people that necessarily are ready to do something next week. It's for people that are like, man, I need to start thinking about this at least to see if it's something that I even want to entertain, or do I even have a business that would be attractive to anybody? And even if it's not, don't I want to build my business, even if I keep it forever, so that, like, that's how you want a business to run regardless, right?
Yeah. Yep. And again, with what Quantify does is we go into companies and help them build those efficiencies. Knowing where they actually are streamlines our ability to forecast for them into the future, right? At the end of the day, I don't give a shit if you're trying to sell your company or not, but I do want to know the health of your company when I'm stepping into it, because that's going to affect what recommendations you're given. And whether you use Quantify or any other consulting company to help, or business coach service, whatever it is, like having accurate information helps us make better recommendations for you to move your company forward.
Yeah, I'm super excited. If anybody's watching, like, I'd really love like some cool people to come out and hang out and be part of this experience and learn something and just kind of see what happens. You know, it's going to be a really, really, really cool event. So please reach out. Adam, anything you want to close with?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I'll close, if you're open to it, close on this and an endorsement of this event is somebody who's coming from like a background in private equity and venture capital. There is an ocean of dog shit advice that are given to company owners. Like I came into roofing and came into the space and was like looking around like, holy fuck, are you kidding me? And it is really refreshing finally to see somebody that has the exact right angle, the exact right approach. And this is like invaluable information. If at any point you're thinking about considering selling your company in 24 to 48 months, I would be on the first plane there. So
that's awesome. Thanks, man. Well, everybody, thank you for tuning in. We're going to do this every 2 weeks with a different topic. We're going to talk about whether it's marketing or it's accounting or it's operations or it's whatever it is. We're going to talk every 2 weeks here about how you can implement VAs into your company. Today it was about top line revenue, and I'm sure that's going to be a popular topic. So we'll rehash that once in a while. But like, there's so many different ways to implement outsourced people to be able to grow your business. I think this is really, really important. And I want to make sure that we're not just, telling dick jokes and making people laugh on the show. Like I want to be able to educate and help people as well.
I didn't realize I could tell dick jokes. So if we could create a minute or
who the fuck do you think you're on the phone with? I guess we don't know each other that well, do we? Yeah, if you got a dick joke, fucking break it out.
Yeah, you got 30 seconds.
Yeah, you got 30 seconds.
Well, now there's too much pressure. I gotta, yeah.
Okay, yeah, you got stage fright. Okay, next time. All right, everybody, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you in a couple of weeks, and tune into the next episode of Be Authentic or Get the Fuck Out on your favorite social media platform. And remember, everybody, to be authentic or get the fuck out.